everybody. Welcome back to the Straight Outta BS podcast. If we have made it to 1,000 subscribers by the time this video comes out, thank you guys so much. If we haven't, I don't know how that could happen. So I guarantee we're at 1,000 by the time this comes out. But thank you guys for all of your continued support, and just continue to share the videos, like them. You know, anything you interact with the video, it helps the algorithm. And not provably, but like content like this, like it usually tends to get shadow banned. People don't really want people talking about this. People with a lot of money in charge, so of these schools and other stuff, don't really like people talking about it. So if you could help by sharing, liking, subscribe if you're not already, leave a comment, like anything helps. Thank you to everybody that's done that so far. For all my Patreon members and anybody that's joined the channel, thank you guys so much for your monetary support. It really means the world to me. I never really ask for donations at all, so any I get, it just really means a lot. So thank you for that. I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction or anything like that. So on the count of 3, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
Hi, my name is Susan, aka Rabbit, and I went to the CEDU school, the one in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, Rocky Mountain Academy, and I got there March of 1989, and was there until, they don't have like my whole like book stuff with me right now, until June of 91. So I was there, I was like the first person in my peer group, and so I was there a lot longer than most people. I was there a little under 3 years.
Okay.
A couple much shy of 3 years.
Okay. And walk us through like your childhood and what led up to being sent away.
Okay. One thing I'm just going to start with is I do take issue. I mean, I understand we have to call it something, but I do take issue with T.T.I, the troubled teen industry, because it's troubled parents industry. Children don't end up in trouble, wounded, and in need of being raised by others or sent to an institution without poor parenting or neglect, abuse, any of that. So I just want to state that. But I was, my parents divorced. I grew up, I had an abusive home, very abusive, a father that was terribly abusive, not just to myself, to my mom, to my siblings, and was alcoholic and all of that. And my parents divorced, I guess it was around 10, 11. And when my mother remarried, and there's a lot of trauma in between, but we'll get into that. My mother remarried. We moved from my childhood home to my new stepfather's house, and all of a sudden it was like a new life, new rules, everything. And I was, it was horrible. And I went to a boarding school, a girls' boarding school, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. It was in Gainesville, Georgia, and I was there for freshman. I got there in the middle of like freshman year, and was there, and then I guess 2 years, and ended up getting kicked out. A group of us like cut the alarm system and did all kinds of stuff like that. There's so much in between there, but so I went back home, and I was at my mother and my stepfather's house for, right after being expelled from Burnell. And I remember walking up and to the living room, because they had me living in like in a basement area. and seeing my mom just bawling, crying, sitting there in a chair and bawling, crying. And I was like, what's going on? It just, everything felt weird. Everything, I even wrote a note and put it under my stepsister's pillow in her room. It was like, something's up. There's something weird right now. Like, I don't know what they're planning, but something's wrong. And it was that night when I was asleep at about like 4 in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning, the light went on in my room. I was woken up and I look up at the doorway and there's my, not my stepfather, but my father and my mother standing in the doorway. And they're like, wake up, get up, we're going to look at schools. And I just thought it was a nightmare. I was just like, turn the light off, I'm having a nightmare. Let me go back to sleep. And they're like, wake up, get up. We're getting on a plane in an hour. It's before it's a long time ago. It's before all of the, like, you know, you could go through an airport in an hour. And I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? They're like, we're going to look at a boarding school in Idaho. And I was like, where? Like, I had no clue, right? And I was like, no. And they had like backpack. I was like, I'm not going to take all of that. I was like, what's going on? I made them show me the plane tickets. And they showed me a ticket with a return. They're like, we're going out to look. We're doing an interview. You know, you'll come back on Tuesday. And I looked at the ticket. I didn't take all the things that they had packed. I packed a few things. I was like, then I don't need all of that. And I just packed like a backpack. And this was after they said, you know, you can go the easy way or the hard way. You know, you're going. And so then we're in the Atlanta airport, and flew through, I think, like Chicago and then Spokane, Washington. I was sent to, you know, the CEDU, Bonners Ferry, Idaho. And so we landed there and we drove from the Spokane airport got a rental car, drove to Bonners Ferry and stayed in the Kootenai Hotel for the night. And I remember like going into the bathroom and trying to go off into the hall, and they had the 2 bounty hunters, which is just the usual thing, right there in the hall. I think it was like Mike and Shannon Healy was that team. They were, so I could be wrong about the names, but so I couldn't run. And the next morning we got into the rental car and we're driving, and I was just like, where the hell am I? Like, what is this? Like, it was just all insane. It felt insane and scary. And these 2 people who were my parents, I just remember sitting in that back seat and being like, and I might get emotional during this because right now I feel like I'm gonna, like, what are these people that I'm supposed to be able to trust? What are they doing? You know, what are they doing to me right now? Like, what is going on right now? And so scared and like helpless, you know. And I remember we're driving on like a dirt road. It's freaking Bonners Ferry, Idaho, which isn't developed right now. It certainly wasn't back then. And we drive onto this property, and I remember looking around and just being like, it looked like nothing I'd ever seen before, you know. It's like it was like just cabins and wooden buildings and cabins and seeing all these kids that look so different from the kids that I hung out with, and in the sense that they all look the same. It was like they took a cookie cutter for boy and a cookie cutter for girl, right? And they all had primary colors on, hard cardboard, you know, jeans, and they're pulling this big thing, which later I came to find out was called the chariot, this big giant wooden wagon the size of a car with chopped wood in it. And they would turn to, it was like staring at them, like, because it was bizarre, you know. I guess you can kind of say, like, if you were from the city and all of a sudden you're like plopped down in like Amish land, you know what I mean? It was a little of that feel. And I remember the kids like looking and trying to kind of, like, they were so curious about me and trying to like sneak a look at me, but then like turning away real quick. And I was like, it was so bizarre. So then we pulled up to the main building, which is called Emerson. They have to name all the buildings like Walden and Emerson and, all of these, Thoreau, and, like they're all about the good stuff. And they said, you're going to go off with these two girls. They're going to take you on a tour. And we're going to go talk to administration. And I was like, no. Like, we can just go ahead and go back home. Like, I've seen it. I'm good. This isn't the one for me. Let's check another boarding school out next week. Like, this has been it. And that I was just, how like you don't get it. And then like, you really think this isn't happening.
Yeah.
And then you do gradually, you're like, no one's hearing me. No one else is getting me, So I remember going on a tour with the two girls, Monica and Renee, and they're telling me all these rules. You can't, you have to have your hair up. You can't roll up your jeans. You have to have your shirt tucked in. You can't say, certain names of music, and they called them agreements that, I didn't really agree to. And nobody did, right? But they called them agreements. But and there's a major reason why they do this. Everything that these schools do is a template. It is designed, and you and I have spoken about, the why and all. But the punishment, these agreements, like if you roll your jeans up, the punishment for that, like this crazy extreme thing, right? But like a kid, this is when people would like taper their jeans and roll them up and stuff, you know what I mean? There was nothing that could be like imagey, right? So I think you probably know that. So we finished that, and then we got back, and they were like, we're going to take you you're going to sit down with the administrative lady, to her. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm not going to go here. I'm good. And we walked out. I was still with the two girls, separate from my parents. And we walked out in this like a huge big wooden building, and then a gravel parking lot and a dirt road. And I looked down from the steps, and I see my parents. I'm trying to watch like my wording because I want to say bad things. But I watched them get into that little red rental car, and the doors closing, and I'm like, going on, and I start running down the steps, and they start driving away, and I chase that rental car all down the dirt road, and it's like in gravel and everything, and I'm like in the most mind-blowing what the hell is going on that I've ever been in my life. And I'm just running and chasing this car and getting hit with dust and rocks and until I couldn't see them anymore. And it was just like dust. And I just dropped to the ground, and I dropped to the ground, and I'm sobbing. And literally reality for me stopped that day. Like what I knew to be my reality, like it stopped that day. It was over that day.
Okay. And what happened after that? What do you remember about when you first got there? Did they give you a physical rule manual or anything?
Oh, no. So this was like, no, this is so far back that they weren't even insured back then. This is prior to the Brown family school. The Brown school's taking over LDS, Luciferian, all of that. But this was when, so right after that, those two girls, they catch up with me. They had been chasing me while I'm chasing the rental car. And we go back to this building, and we go in, and they say, now you're going to have a strip search. And I mean, I'm it's so, I think, difficult. And I mean, and the other survivors of us, and love to you all. It's so unbelievable for other people to even comprehend. I might have like a wildcat that's coming up and might attack me during the call.
It's all good. I have a kitten too. She's behind me sleeping.
Yours is probably nicer. But so I was like a strip search, like, and they took me into a bathroom, and there's like, I think 3 people in there, and they're making me take my clothes, and it was horrifying. It was horrifying. I had those like never like I had like many of the survivors from the T.T.I. and from these schools have already experienced abuse, whether it be, I don't want to mess up your show and say things I shouldn't. All forms of abuse.
No, you can say whatever you want. I mean, I don't have any filters on, so you can say whatever you want.
Like sexual abuse, physical abuse, whatever. But so to be, 15 and 16 and be taken into a room with strangers right after you've been, manhandled, abandoned by your family, and put in a room with strangers and told to take your clothes off. And as they search your pockets, and like, I didn't even know what. At that point in my life, the things that I know people could search for on like an inmate or like something like that, I had no idea. Do you know what I mean? I had like a little plastic dinosaur in my pocket and like, like stupid, like it was insane and horrifying and it chips away at your soul. It hurts, it's just another abuse, right? And so I went straight from that, and I remember they're like, we only could wear like certain things. You couldn't wear black, you couldn't wear makeup, you had to have, all the girls had to have their hair up and off their face like 24/7. Anytime you're, around other people. The living situation was, we were put in dorms that was like a cabin, like not even as big as my like living room here, with like 7 girls and log bunk beds. Everything was made of like logs and stuff, and the bathrooms were these like showers that had like plywood spring doors. You had to keep your shower to 5 minutes, or it was so militant, and you could only have enough things that you could fit in like a foot locker, or we had a certain amount of inches in the closet, which there's no doors. It was just this one room, I was taken straight after the strip search abuse. I was put into a wrap, which for CEDU, and I don't know if it's a good time to go into like the structure of these places.
Yeah, you can do that.
All right. So they start out, all of these schools are they're just a spin-off of the Church of Synanon, and which is Charles E. Deirdre, who was a special ops for the government, 100%. And I'll provide you with documents if you want to throw those in and be able to put them up on the screen. What's declassified that I do have. But so Charles E. Deirdre, so CEDU, they used to say it's CEDU, and there's a California school, and then there's an Idaho, Bonner's Ferry school, and they would say that it's like, see what you do and change it. And that's where the name comes from, CEDU, but it's CEDU. Like, why is it spelled out? But so it's actually Charles E. Deirdre University. So the whole thing is just a big mind fuck, right?
Yeah.
So he he was the founder of the Church of Synanon, yeah. And then Mel Wasserman, which was the second up in the CEDU schools, was also with the Church of Synanon. So the Church of Synanon cult actually got a very, very Nazi Germany background. That they made all their members shave their heads, very neo-Nazi, and are still active today in Germany. And they do a lot of the just networking, marketing, selling home goods. They have all these lines and making monies and infiltrating the churches, and using that as, such a massive networking tool, I guess. So those two, and they've got this whole cult, and they started off in Santa Monica, California, and then they moved into a building that was like an ex-naval building. It was a Navy building that had been supposedly abandoned, which is BS. And so they were in there. The whole thing is completely just a monarch, MK Ultra. All of these schools are behavioral modification, which is what the template for mind control for MK Ultra. It is behavioral modification. It is to break down and break away at break the person, traumatize, break the person, and it's obviously from childhood works better, right? Which they will split. You will split because of we all humans survive. It's nature to survive. That's why people have to tie something on themselves to drown. You can't just make yourself, we fight to survive. The whole goal there is to break that will. And with doing that, they separate the personality, and they can implement and put in any kind of triggers, keywords, key things that they can utilize, at any time to activate whatever they want to activate. With the T.T.I, the troubled teen industry, with the institutionalized children, one of their main objectives is research and studies. And a lot of the families get paid for this, and just they're paid, they know, and we're just walking around going, wow, this is, and why is everything even after this so hard? What is the struggle? Why am I struggling so hard? And just to feel normal, right? And that's it's a constant battle, but it's because they've used behavioral modification.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. Okay.
So real quick, so the CEDU schools, they were designed, so when the Church of Synanon started getting in trouble for putting venomous snakes in mailboxes of people that were coming after them and speaking out and killing people, they were they're kind of onto us. And I'm sure there was some sort of government contract and talks over this. They thought, we're gonna make these schools and have people pay us to send their children. We'll call it a drug rehab. We're gonna fix your children and all this stuff. And so they started these schools. They started the one first in Big Bear, California, and then they took the students or children or subjects from that school, and they took them to build the school in Bonners Ferry, Idaho. And the reason why they chose Bonners Ferry, Idaho, is because at the time there were no child labor laws, there were no anything. So, we built the place. There's no no protection, no child abuse laws, nothing. And they they could conduct what they were paid to conduct by the CIA. And I have the documents that it's been scrubbed right now, but I've already got it, which was to do peer research. So what they, when you first got there, like when I first got there, you get put in a peer group. You're not a sophomore or junior. You get put in a peer group. I was peer group 34, but they wait until there's like 30 kids get there, which takes a couple months, depending for that to filter in. The one ahead of me had just closed. So I was the first one that was going to be starting with my peer group. So I had to wait, a few months for there to be enough kids that then they start moving you through this program of mindfuckery.
Wow. Yeah. You should send me the documents and I'll figure out a way to I'll teach myself how to overlay it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. For sure.
Yeah. So what they were paid for, they were given and the document I have, I'm sure it ends up being more than this, but the one that I have is that Mel Wasserman was given $2 million by the CIA to conduct a study on it was called peer research. So we're called peer groups, right? So in a lot of the things, which again, the whole entire program is taken from the what do you call it? The activity to the recipe of the Church of Synanon cult. So they had a thing called the game. They had a thing called what they called so we have the WASP is what they called the game, which was they would make us sit in a room in a circle of hard chairs with, I don't know, probably 15 to 20 something kids. And this was 4 hours a week or 4 hours a day for like 3 days a week. And every now and then it's like a really fun pop-up one, and they were called the WASPs. And so you would sit in these chairs, and there were like really, strict rules. You had to have some part of your foot on the floor and at least one body part on the chair at all times. And then you had to, if you wanted to address somebody, they said the idea behind this was so that, any conflict, any disagreements, anything, if you need to talk something out with another person or tell on a person, that this was all conducted inside these times in these WASPs. And they called them facilitators. It was these same staff that were just like prior troubled teen people that they moved from California. And nobody at that time, there was no license. The school wasn't licensed, staff weren't licensed, like nobody. Like my counselors were like Fred, love him, Fred, rest in peace, but like the plumber that moved them, right, to counselor position. Like we didn't have like certified therapists or certified counseling, like nothing, nobody. And then sprinkled within were actually, and I've got the names of them, I'm not sure I'll present that, but some staff were just CIA, there to study the peer research and document it and make reports on it. And so you would sit in these groups, and if you wanted to address somebody, you had to move across the room to the seat across from them, and whoever was sitting in that chair would get up and move. And then if a lot of people were going to attack that one kid, which is called attack therapy, this is what they use. This is what they use. You would all of a sudden see a bunch of people like move across and everybody, switching seats. And then you would say, I want to indict. Words, we're kids, right? I want to indict so-and-so because of this, and then start like, and it was such a shit show because you've got kids. Some want to think that if you do good, you're going to be able to go home, right? If you're following these rules and you're doing what they say, like your parents are going to get a good word and they're going to pull you, right? And you're like, you're out of this hell, right? So you've got the ones that just perform for that. And by perform in these places, it is tell on anyone, like turn anyone in, attack anyone in these groups, you know, for anything. And then cry and then they wanted you to say everything bad that you had ever done in your life. You're kids, you know, you're freaking kids. They would have you write a thing called dirt list. But all of this was so that they had your weaknesses. They had what you felt bad about. They had what shamed you. And that was used on everybody, like from that point on, you know. But sitting in those chairs, so 3 days a week. So we had ours at CEDU in Idaho, Rocky Mountain Academy. It would be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or the rap days. And you knew when you went up in the morning that the nervousness, the fear on those days where it was rap day, and they had a thing, I think it was called like request box, or I think it was like a request box where people would say like, I want to, you know, be in a rap with this person. When you saw somebody that you had a beef with, like go up to that box and drop something in, you're just like, oh, you know. These raps were no joke. There are today that could not hang in one of these things. They would, like little babies, they would not be able to hang in these groups because you have people that, like I said, the only rule is to have part of your butt sitting on a chair and one foot sitting on a chair. Everything else, people are like lunging and like, yeah, you know, there was no, the staff, the facilitators were like egging on, just tell them how you feel. People, you could see the blood vessels in their heads flying out of their faces, like yelling. And they're like, tell them how it feels, project on them, you know, and you're a kid, you're 15, 13. There were kids there that were 12. And one girl that, sweetheart, poor thing, and my peer group was 11 when she got there. And you've got these other kids. You have, you know, it's hard in our regular world, being at like a middle school or elementary school, and you've got a couple of people mad at you or like teasing you. When you're sitting and you're the same age and you're in a for 4 hours and a group of kids are allowed just to go at you and being cheered on by staff, right? Give it to and saying the most horrific things and yelling like where it's like spit. The amount of trauma and damage and what that does to the psyche of a child, and that would be from one time, but this is 3 days a week for 2.5 years. You know, for some a couple months less, and like me a few months more. You know, every single week, and kids learn how to. The major defense thing was if someone's getting attacked, jump in on that, right? Because you don't want to be, you know, the next one they see in the corner of the night. They're going to move from that person on to the next, right?
Yeah.
And so many kids, it's attack therapy. It's like watching wild animals go to town on a carcass. It's disgusting.
Yeah. And then they had the game, right?
So the game. So there's the game, and then there's that. But so yeah, so we had Prophets. So at CEDU it was called Prophets, which was that they took from the Prophet, the book from Khalil Gibran, and there's fabulous things about that. But just like anything, when power gets in the hand of man, they twist it and distort it to fit their own agenda, correct? Yeah. So that's what they did. So ours were called prophets, and it was supposed to take the word of the prophet and put feet on it. Like what? I don't know. But yeah, this is another Church of Synanon thing. And at the Church of Synanon, they actually use LSD, which is another like cool CIA MK Ultra tool, right?
Yeah.
That's
where it originated. That's what it started with.
That's exactly what it started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's questionable because you know, the water was provided, there was little food during these. But so the profits, when you start out, and like you said, like we're in peer groups, so you move through school. It's not based on age, it's not based on schooling. Fuck schooling, really. My education, like I can handle lamb season, like you know, farm work. I can sledge and wedge and two-man saw like a son of a bitch. But like education was so not even secondary. It was it was it it was all a bunch of bull. Total bull. And again, nobody's licensed. Nobody's, you know, the guy teaching geometry, you know, was wearing his gray sweats and like and talking about his days on acid, you know. So like as it's just all bull. But so yeah, so when these profits, so the first one that you go through, we had families. So you're in Voyagers, and then you're in Discovery, and then you're in Quest, and then you're in Challenger, Horizon, and Summit. That's how CEDU worked at that time. And it would be like 3 months, 2 months, whatever, in each like family. And so the first prophecy is just like a 24-hour, but like you're put in a cabin in a room with these like the peer group that you're with, and you're kept awake the entire time. There's no sleeping, and you're sitting in the same kind of circle of chairs like they do in the raps, and they're yelling at you. They're playing loop music, just weird, crazy stuff. They're, you know, trying to break. It's just breaking the mind, you know, breaking you down, breaking every single person down. What was the name that people called you when you were little? Like, you know, the bad name, right? Like kids are made fun of, and like, what's the bad name? And then all the staff start yelling at you, and the lights are off, and loop music, and it's crazy shit, you know. And then this goes up to 3-day where you don't sleep for 3 days, and then 5-day, and then like 6-day, I think maybe even longer. And on those longer ones, and I found out later, and I have the scripts to a lot of these that I can also provide you, these workshops. Okay. But they would tell us like you would only have like carrots and celeries, and I think they did Wheaties, like a big FU, like Wheatie to the cereal for champions, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like what we were allowed to eat during this time. The food was very limited because they worked on deprivation and breaking everything. You're hungry, you're cold, you're tired, you're sitting in these hard plastic chairs. If somebody started to fall asleep, they would make you stand up behind your chair, and you would have to be standing there. And so the ones that were like 3 days, and I'm talking like you didn't go back to your little cabin to sleep. Like you're in this room for 3 days, like for 3 days straight. And the staff would come in and out, and they'd have, you know, filler staff while the other one slept. But we did not sleep. And when they said, okay, everybody's going to lay on the floor, and you're going to sleep for a little while, and we would all just drop on this shit floor in this building, right, in the next room. And I found out later that when the last kid fell asleep, they woke everybody up. So the longest anyone ever slept during that time was 15 minutes. But you're so sleep deprived that you thought like, oh, it's 3 hours, it's something, right? But it's just brainwashing. It's behavioral modification. It's brainwashing. It's breaking a human being.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you have those where you were?
They have what?
Did you have, like, what were those like where you were? Like the game, what?
We just had these. we just had these seminars that was a bunch of attack therapy, and then I don't know, they're really hard to explain. But
But how often were yours?
every couple months. But they would be multiple day long things.
Were you allowed to see? You guys were you're probably bigger than me. You were probably like insured at that point. And then there's, then they have like the T.T.I family services coming in, make sure everything's like up and up, and like that the kids are given like certain, and not that it's easier, not that the abuse is less, were you guys allowed to sleep? Did you leave those seminars, or
we were down there the entire day, and then at nighttime we would go back up to our families, and then we would go back down there first thing in the morning. We wouldn't even, or did we stay? No, we didn't sleep down there. We wouldn't have had anywhere to sleep down there. So
they put us on the floor. They don't care about that. So they did call your thing. They called your thing families as well, right?
The groups we were in, yeah.
Yeah. So do you see how that's a whole nother?
That's an evolution of it. Yeah.
So it's a whole nother mind game, right? This is my family, right? This is my children.
Yeah. Yep. And so ours were seminars, but they were required. And if you fucking got chosen out of one of them, you had to wait a couple months. Your program got held back like 2 or 3 more months. And then so there was people that if like you weren't showing up enough, and I already knew what it was because by the time I started working my program, I'd been there a year already. I'd been there a year. I'd been there already a year. So they told me that if I didn't start working my program, that they were going to send me to Jamaica. And they didn't have to tell my parents because they already signed their rights away. So yeah, that's scared. They threw me in isolation one day and they said, yeah, you need to work your program because if you keep on doing this, we're just going to send you away to another place that's even worse. And so you just went off camera. There we go. There we go. No, it's all good.
Is my volume still okay?
Yeah, you're good. So yeah, you'd have to do them, and there was people that got chosen out, and
it was called chosen out.
Yeah, like you chose yourself out. Even it's either you chose yourself out or they would choose you out.
But
they would point
same word bullshit as our rules being agreement. Like I didn't agree to it. I didn't choose to, it's the same, it's all mind games.
Yeah, but based on results, you're choosing to choose out because you didn't show up enough. That would be their reasoning. They'd be like, based on results, like if you wanted to be here, you would have made sure to show up. That's why the very first day in my first seminar, I just got up on the chair and I was like, my name's Jordan. This is exactly what the fuck I've been through. So they wouldn't call on me because I knew it was going to happen. They're like, if you don't get up and fucking just say what you've been through and like all your trauma, like right first, they're going to call you out and stand you up and ask you why you're not sharing it and why you're not being real. And yeah, it was crazy. You're frozen.
Wait, are we there?
Yeah, we're good.
You had the option of like going.
What was that?
You had the option of showing up or not.
No, we had to go to the seminar, but if you didn't like showing up as in like getting emotional and like yeah, getting vulnerable and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So that was those seminars, and then they're really weird. They'd have us like beating the floor with a towel for fucking several hours.
We had to it's all still like they're all from the Church of Sinai, which is the CIA break the mind, can we do this maybe without LSD, mind break, human manipulation on the mind breakdown. It's all it is. So we have there's the names of our properties. One is called it's a truth prophecy. And the truth will set you free, right? And that's when you divulge all of your like anything you regret in your life, anything you
Yeah.
feel ashamed of, then they've got those tools to fuck with you the rest of the time, right? They've got your weakness, right? And so you're there, right? And the next one was like your brother's keeper. And that one's supposed to like show you how you like aren't loyal to your friends and like be a friend. And that was me, like they would make us stand up. And I remember myself and my one of my closest people there who was like my sister. Well, that's a bad word to me now, but you know, soul person. And they had to stand across from each other. The whole circle, of course, we're in this room, and all the staff are telling that you person number or person A needs to slap person B, right? And everybody's sitting around watching, and they know that you're best friends, right, in this place, right? And they're yelling, you need to slap your best friend. You need to hit your best friend. And the people are yelling and like, what does friendship mean to you? And I'm just standing there looking eye to eye with this person, with really the only person that I feel like I have anyone. You know what I mean? Like the person that I feel like is in the same fight terror with me, that because you know the kids that have been there longer would sell you out, right? Because they want to finish this program. They've learned that if they hear somebody breaking the rules, which the agreements, you know, whatever, if they tell on those people, what they do is they self police. You know, they use the kids to police each other. It's a gross governance that goes on. So so they have us sitting there, and then when you won't, they're saying, "Oh, you're a sellout. You're not committed. You're not doing it." And then finally, I mean, after sitting there staring at each other, and finally, and it's hard to remember. And I have a lot of people block shit out. Mine's all fresh and clean, but he looked at me and said, "Just do it." You know, like, let's just do it. Let's get it over with. Standing here for 3 hours with them yelling at us and at each other, you know, and everybody's sobbing. All our friends are like, everybody in our peer group and our family, like sobbing, you know, yeah, crying, and there's the loop music playing and everything. Just do it. Let's just get this done with. And then the minute that you slap a person, look what a fucking sellout you are, you know,
Yeah.
you're old, you know, you're not your, you know, it's a giant mind, you know, and
Yeah.
this is your life now, right? This is only one, you know, for most people longer because they had to wait for everybody to show up. This is your life. And during all of this, I think something that's important is communication. And at the time I was there, and my scenario, there's you could not communicate for the first, I don't know how long. I couldn't for 6 months. I couldn't make a phone call or write a letter or receive a letter or anything for 6 months. I kept trying to split, to run away. And so my first phone call, we could have a 15-minute phone call with your parents. If they're together, then you get this every 2 weeks. If they're separate, then you get one parent, you know, 15 minutes, and then one, like a 15-minute phone call a month. You could not make any other calls. So there was no access to phones. Friend of mine and I broke into a phone room at one point. Like it was so, there was like the internet wasn't around at this point, you know. So they literally could just get away with it, with anything. The when I finally made my first phone call, and they have an upper school student sitting there to observe and supervise the phone call. If I say, which I did, Mom, you have no clue what this place is. Get me the hell out of here. They've lied to you. You don't know what's going on. Before I can even get 3 of those words out of my mouth, a girl that I thought was like, they call it their big sister, right? Strennan, who's now dead, she self-deleted, of course, because that's what all of our people, majority, are designed to do, programmed to do. But she hangs the phone up, and then that was that month. You know, that was my phone call. That was my chance.
Okay. Okay. What was the worst thing you saw or experienced in CEDU?
So I was groomed by a staff there, and there a lot of people were, especially like I said, during the time that we weren't insured, or the schools weren't insured. There was no supervision. There were no staff that had any kind of degree or license or certification. There was no just governing, whatever that would be. It was very, very, it was so corrupt. Our I'll give you kind of your morning tonight, and then I'll kind of answer that. So that's a hard one to answer because it's so much, but I guess my personal experience would be, the one I had with that. But so what we had was we have one big building that's called the house. Again, everything's like wood cabin building. It's a giant commune that's in a valley in Bonners Ferry, Idaho. And there's all the little cabins. You could not, like I couldn't leave to go to the restroom without an upper school person having to be assigned to me to go with me. So I couldn't say, oh, I want to go down to my like dorm cabin and just go. I had to have permission, and then I had to be supervised by another student that was already brainwashed, to go with me. So there was not even to go use the restroom. It couldn't happen. So here's how the day for me during my time at CEDU, this is how, and everybody else there at the same time as me, love to all. You were in your room with 7 girls or whatever, in these bunk beds in this wooden thing. You would wake up, I think it was 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. You could go and shower for 5, have your 5-minute shower. And then it was house around the pit where everybody had to walk up to the house again. You have to be supervised. You can't just go on your own until you're in like what they call upper school, which is like a year in, to be able to walk freely on your own to some degree. But so we would walk up to the house. Everybody would sit around the pit where you would have breakfast, and all of our food, everything there was like wood stove. We chopped the wood that operated like the cooking stove, whatever. So whatever food was put up, they would call areas of the house up to be able to go get in line to get food. And when the food ran out, I mean, there's not like a microwave and they're gonna make more, it's gone. And so you would eat breakfast and then you would go with your like family. So if you're in the first thing, which is Voyagers, you would go down to the Voyager like room and sit, and then from there they would take you out to work. So in each family there's work details. So for Voyagers, it's the wood corral, where we did like kindling, two-man saw, sledge and wedge. We just chopped all the wood for the entire property was operated off burning wood. There was it really wasn't anything else that operated. I mean, there's some like electricity, but all the stoves and the heating, water heating, the heating for these cabins, everything, all the cooking in the kitchens, everything was operated by burning wood. So we would be chopping wood until 11:45, go back up, house around the pit. Everybody would be sitting and hungry because everybody worked their asses off, called up to eat. And if it was a wrap day, a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, you're nervous and freaking out. And after that, you're all going to whatever area they stand up and call the names off and which building you're going to for this attack therapy session that lasts 4 hours. And then if it was not a wrap day, which was only Tuesday and Thursday, you had work detail, like more work, right? So our is just this giant wood floor, dining room, and then a separate area, those like sections of couches, all sections off and just carpet, and then like a thing called the pit. And we would have to take like a kitchen knife and be on our knees and be like knifing the cracks, go all along just like yards and yards of the crack. Sorry, my cat. Actually, knock it off. Oh my gosh. 1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry. He knows how to open doors, and he's trying to get some. So we would have to take these knives and just clean like the cracks in the wood floor. It's just bullshit. You know, work to maintain the place. It's like child slave labor, you know. And then on Saturdays, it was like this started off with work crew. And the rest of the time, so you would have dinner. I think our dinner was at like 6:30 something. And then it was called Smush Around the Pit. So this smush thing, and that's what they called it, is literally, I'll give you pictures of this too, because it's mind blowing to people that don't know and haven't seen this. People just laying on top of people, somebody's head on somebody's stomach, and all over the floor. You would have to like step over bodies to even get through it. And you're supposed to be telling your story. So it's your are you with the program kind of deal, to be telling your story to all you're assigned to tell it to. So you have to sit and say, about your childhood, about your family, about your but the whole thing where they made intimacy, they made natural, like a crush on another person, which these ages in your teen years is like a normal thing going on with people. They made it so dark, so wrong. You're dirty for that. If anybody had like a crush on another person, you're not allowed to talk. You're in a thing called bans. You can't make eye contact or speak to them for as long as you're on this like band thing. However, the staff, you have these men sitting there laying on the ground with these teenage girls, they've got them sitting in their lap, right? And telling them their story, which when they're telling the story at this place and these schools, they want you to get nitty and gritty, dirty. What do you feel bad about, right? It's just nuts. It's nuts. So my worst thing was that I was I was definitely groomed by a staff. I was told this is I was very, very, I was not like, I'm gonna comply with this to make it easy for myself. I was like, this is fucked up. You know, that's weird. This is wrong. I'm not gonna cry on command. I'm not gonna go along with this. I was so shit's wrong, and I can't act like it's not to make it easier for myself, which is kind of my stance in life. And so they had this one staff who was like, had been an ex-gang member, had a hard story that they would send into any of my, you know, these prop beats, the game, the whatever, that was like, I'm a person you can trust. I get you. My life is hard. Da, da, da. You know, you can trust me. You know, and and that was bullshit. That was bullshit. He ended up getting one student pregnant and going off and leaving. It's very hard. I'm very like Patty Hearst with this because, you know, of course we get into that. Well, I forgot the Patty Hearst, the syndrome, whatever. I'll take it. But it's where you sympathize with your abuser, you know,
Well,
and
Stockholm syndrome.
Thank you, Stockholm syndrome. It's so created in these environments, you know, and still to this day, there's part of me that's just like, oh, you know, this poor person, but that person, when I did finally get out of there and leave and go to college, like I was followed to my first college, left there because it freaked me out, right? I was trying to be normal. I was trying to be not this person that was like raised in a cult for 3 years, you know, and fit in with peers my age in the real world. And then they show up there. So I moved to Colorado and I start going to school there. They show up there. You know, I have been continually, these staff are assigned to keeping up with me, keeping in check, you know, and there's some that it's hard because I care about, they were like students too, you know, before they were that I care about, but it's also, it's part of the whole handler situation. But so that ended up being there's just bad shit that went on. Kids hung themselves from pipes. One of my like little sister ran away in the night, was trying to run away. No one ever really got that far. A few people did, but I went to go. I was like, oh, someone said, hey, you need to go help so and so. She's down the road. You need to help us get her and bring her back. Later on, when I was in like upper school, and I found her and I'm talking with her and she's got a gray sweatshirt on and I'm like, come on, you've got to come back in with me. And she's crying and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I see red coming through the gray on her sweatshirt. And she had been sitting there inside her sweatshirt trying to self-delete. And we had to, that same staff that was my groomer, my handler, pulls up and we get her in the car and take her to this hospital in Bonners Ferry. And that was a bad time. Bad news.
Okay. And how did you graduate from there?
I did. And I was still in like, you know, I'm not going along with this without calling shit out mode. So we had like the punishments were, like you said, you can get sent off to another place, which is supposed to be so much worse, right? So, you know, Provo Canyon, where Paris ended up, was always a big threat, right? And Rosenbar went there, and then, you know, both of her daughters, love you guys, were at my school. Barbara Walter's daughter, hi Jack, was at my school. So that you would get told you would be sent to like the wilderness, like outward bound, like whatever, where you literally have a bag of grain, a can of peaches, and you're walking, and they take your shoes at night. Um, that was one of the punishments. And or you're going to go to Provo Canyon. They would say this if you like ran away, if you got caught, if you broke the rules too much. But that's kind of bullshit. But what was your question? I totally
I just said you ended up graduating it.
So yeah, so what we did have, that we had a thing called full times, and then I guess a half time, so full time, or no, full time in a booth. So if you got into trouble before the point of them sending you off, and I think there are certain things as far as like if your parents are willing to pay for this extra, punishment thing or whatever. I don't know why I didn't really get sent to one of those. I did like 4 full times, which was a little bit unheard of. And I don't know how many booths, but in that area that I called like the house, where you have like the big hardwood floor dining room thing where we all ate, you would have to go if you were on a booth or full time. You would have to sit with a notebook, and they would give you writing assignments. So, of course, one is like all the bad things you've ever done and write your big list. And you were put on a thing called bands to whatever degree they wanted you to be, whether it was you cannot, and bands is you can't smile, you can't make eye contact with whoever, you're on bands with, or whatever group you're on bands with, and you're always on work to tell. There's no smiling, no laughing, no communication, and you have to work, and then you have to go and sit at this booth and write out these assignments. And at one point, I was on bands, the whole school except for that one staff that was like my groomer that ended up, getting a 14-year-old, 15-year-old girl pregnant, and leaving. But so I did like one of those like 2 months prior to when I was supposed to graduate, because I had tried to raise attention to a staff that was being inappropriate with other students in a sexual manner. And I had so many people and my peers and everything that were like, help us. This person like touched me. This person did this wrong, and then when it came time to like everybody, like here we are in this wrap to discuss this, nobody else was talking, right? Everybody like chicken out. So I got, of course, punished for that. And I was on a full time, and they were saying, we're going to hold you back. We're not going to let you graduate, and whatever. So, but yeah, I graduated. And I think as far as my being like, you gradually get broken down, and you get like, oh, this is like gung ho, this place, right? You're alone in this valley with these people. We did not have, like I said, like internet, phone calls, except for those like once a month. It was rare that you went to town ever. Like that was like a doctor's appointment, and you're still supervised. So we had our own lingo. Like we had our own language and words we would use and phrases, that after graduation, and I go out into the world, and I'm like trying to go to college, which I like started at Savannah College of Art and Design. It was so hard. These people, I couldn't, there's no, like you said before, and like when we were talking privately, like they they break you down, but there's no rebuilding. There's you know, they throw some shit in for later, but there's no like rebuilding. You're just all of a sudden you're put out there in the normal world again, and the whole adjusting. And I was watching a Marine talk about this on a show last night, and I was like, wow, it's so similar to like after these guys are done at war, and then they just go back home, and all of a sudden they're sitting at the table with their family. You know, they're back at home after everything they just experienced that was like traumatizing and crazy, right? And all of a sudden you're sitting at a family table and everybody's talking about like, you know, I went to the mall today. You're just like, it's just, there's no melding back into this reality after that one. And it's very difficult. It's a very difficult
time. Yeah, for sure. What do you struggle with the most as a result of being at CEDU?
CPTSD. So the majority of us do have CPTSD. It is the difference between, for people who don't know, PTSD is that can happen. And then certain people will be in the same circumstance and somebody will be, so there's a person at a museum and a bomb went off, and one person gets PTSD from it, the other person, it does not affect that way. But that is from like one incident, right? So CPTSD is complex, where it is this regular trauma, abuse, whatever, over a period of time, which is complex PTSD. It's either the same abuser doing this over a period of time or being in that environment with that abuse going on, or shock, trauma, whatever. So I've been diagnosed, by 3 different, at least, doctors, but that I have, the diagnosis of CPTSD. And I think for me, understanding that, which is so recent, like the last 2 years, really, is understanding the triggers that are purposely put in. A majority of them, I would say 75, if not more percent, are placed there intentionally for us. But triggers, or even with like how they use the loop music, I could be at the grocery store like trying to pick out, like, do I want flat leaf parsley or what, and there's some music in the background, and it's one of the songs they use for loop for one of these 5-day no sleep programming things, and I don't even know why, but all of a sudden I feel upset, I feel depressed, I feel right. So understanding that and what those are for me, and being able to separate what are my real emotions and feelings from what is like set in has been huge, and understanding how to navigate my nervous system, right? Because then that's why so many of us end up, using substance, alcohol, drugs, whatever, to get relief, because we don't understand these triggers and what's been done to our nervous system and how to regulate it or notice it, ourselves before it gets revved up. That, and then just that there is the lack, like, thank you for what you're doing, like all of the amazing people speaking out. I never thought Paris Hilton would be like a hero of mine. She is now, because she, has brought so much attention with the Breaking Code Silence, and these people that have done so, Katie and then Meg Applegate, all these people that have done so much with Unsilence, Breaking Code Silence, these people to bring attention to the troubled teen industry are doing huge things, but it's still the families that send their children to be in prison, you know, and it's what it is. It's to be institutionalized. Like, I cannot, being a mom now, I cannot imagine sending my child. I cannot imagine sending my child somewhere to go through any of this, to all of it. I can't imagine, right? At the time I went, not even checking out, do these people have licenses? Is anything, will I be able to communicate with my child? You know, any of that. So, so these families, there's some that come out and really look at it, and they're sorry that they did it, and they want to work with their child, their loved one, and be there. It's rare. That's really rare in everything that I've seen. The most of them just keep victimizing that person, blaming, you know, because that's what they do to the black sheep of the family in the first place, right? So like, oh, you're the addict, you're the bad guy, you're this, you went there because you did this, is a lot easier than them, you know, looking at self and how could I send my person off to go through this thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the lack of any kind of sympathy, care, empathy for what I did go through. My family will say, "Oh, you're gonna say Idaho again?" Because I call it Idaho now. Oh, you're gonna say Idaho again? Like, oh my God, really? Like, yeah, because we haven't done that. Like, no one has ever said. Can I tell you guys what I went through? I've given them books, and hey, can you watch this with me? The Netflix, the program, Karen and those girls did such an amazing job on really, really showing what those schools are and what goes on in these things, and hell camp, and gosh, it's amazing. My friend Zach Bonney, who wrote like Dead, Insane, or in Jail, because that's what the staff used to yell. If you don't complete this program, you're going to be dead, insane, or in jail. These people that have with their personal stories or showing this is what goes on and the troubled teen industry, which again, the troubled parent industry, right? Lazy parent industry. I've asked my family, hey, will you sit and look at this? Hey, will you? And they will not do it. They will not do it. You know, I even said, I'm not, if you guys can't watch this one, the program, if you guys won't sit and watch this one, that's it. Fine, we're just not talking. And man, they've given it to me hard ever since. You know, they've taken my children, using corruption and locked down the money from the sale of my house and sold my car. They've got me in. I'm in a Britney situation, only I don't have her fan pool. No one knows who I am, and I'm literally, it is a stop posting, stop speaking out, stop telling anything about this family situation, which just ties in. I do believe that there are some of us that are more, I don't know what it is that we register as far as the behavioral modification, the research with the certain staff that are there to monitor that. But I do believe that there are more that are kind of followed and monitored after leaving, and I'm one for sure. So.
Okay. And if you go back, what?
I hope you edit this. I'm like,
if you could go back in a time machine, knowing what you know now and not go through CEDU, would you do it, and why?
would I not go through it? God, wow. Wow, you hit me with one. I I think it's my life purpose. I think I gotta say, I think I'm supposed to speak out about injustice and about what's going on. And there's a head of the snake that I'm going for, and it's Monarch and MK Ultra and the fucking bullshit government that we have, that is so corrupt and really just goes down to like the Luciferian horde that has taken
Yeah.
over. I'm just gonna say it like that. So there's also like the people that I love that I went through these experiences with. If and this has happened, but if one contacted me today and said I need your help, you know, even if it was one that I wasn't even that tight with, I'm there. I got you. You know,
Yeah.
uh, one other survivor, like I am there, and I know that loyalty. Um, it, and and while I believe there's like the trauma bond of this, there is a understand. There is I'm there. Um, but there are beautiful things. You can't go through 3 years without having a good time, right?
Yeah.
I have funny stories. I have funny stories. We did so many like wilderness expeditions, um, and my survival knowledge and the wilderness and um, what I know and um, God, even from the PTSD, the survival things, some of that I wish I didn't have. Like I would love not to feel like I need a booby trap, but I kind of dig that part of myself, you know. Um, I know how strong I am. Like if it comes down to it, I know, like, fucking got me, you know. Um, and those relationships, and there are, if you have discernment and you can look into something that was so misused and so tainted, and you can pluck out the beautiful, the insightful, the things to learn that are in there, you know, that there's a lot of knowledge that I gained from that experience. I definitely, because of the game, when you're hearing the inner thoughts of teens and trauma and like detail, that's not something that people get to really experience. Teens are very to themselves. They don't know yet how to express. But we really know more about the inner working of the minds of teens and what's going on in there and the ability to be able to help and do good. Because of that, I cherish that.
Okay. So you would definitely go through it again?
Fuck no, man. I guess I don't know. That sounds insane. Um, it's just such a hard question.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
I
okay if
think
you don't know.
I don't know. You know, it's like there's so much.
Okay.
I don't know if I would. I'm not sure if I would have the depth that I have. I don't know because I don't know. You know, like what part was my destiny anyway, and what part. I mean, everything we go through shapes us. But like to say, like, yeah, I would go through that. That just absolutely sounds fucking insane to me because it was hell, and it's been hell. But would I would I be in the life purpose that I feel like I'm in right now? No. So
Okay.
I think we have to take some hits to do good for others, and I think that's the I don't know if I would choose to do that. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
apparently ignorance is bliss. You know, if I could
Right.
get my sister to talk, I'd ask her.
Okay. And what do you think would have helped you instead of being sent away?
Not being abused as a child, parents being decent humans and responsible parents. And it's starting there. Absolutely, it's starting there. And noticing when there's something going on in their child and trying to figure it out, communicate. You know, parents have to be intact, aware, responsible people to raise a good child, you know? And if they're not, if they're narcissists or insecure and you know, that kid's gonna take hits, you know, and it's people say kids are resilient and it just pisses me off. I'm so like, why are there so many adult assholes if kids are so resilient?
Right.
You know, yeah, it's just a bunch of bull. And that's just another way to say like, oh, fine, I can fuck around, right? I just think that there's so much. I think there's so many people that just are too cowardly to look at like, what do I need to personally work on myself to be a better person? What's not good? Where do I cheat being good? You know, is it, do I lie? Is it, do I think about me more than putting other people, other people's like needs and care? Am I greedy? Am I jealous? You know, there's just too many people that just don't do these things. And how can you go and raise another human if you can't look at those areas in your own self and do them right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Okay. Is there anything else you want people to know about your program?
Yeah, that it was that it's all MK Ultra, that didn't end. That that it was peer research being conducted, and that so many of us, you know it or not, and I was shocked to figure it out, are monitored to stay. We have handlers, people that you trust that are right next to you, that is your go-to person, can be a handler, and most likely is. And where you know, their whole thing was like, oh, satanic panic, or they want to make things sound crazy, or like it's that's the game, you know, that's the part of it. They said that MK Ultra ended. It did not subcontract now, so that it doesn't appear on government records. They won't have to declassify anything because it goes out to private contract companies. But there's a lot that what their job is to monitor certain people, and there are one of the main things is that I don't know if people understand or know, or you know, don't, is the number of grown children, of people that are in the troubled teen institutionalization, whatever, the troubled teen industry. The rate of self-deleting, of self-caused death, is unheard of, compared to any other. If you look at other high schools and compare the numbers, if you anything, and people say like chicken before the egg, like that thing, but it is programmed in. And this I know, and people can believe it or not, but to self-delete. If people start, there's so many people that I know for years and years that have started speaking out, and then all of a sudden they get this incredible body pain they can't handle anymore. Liam was one of the first ones. It's like the all of these things are, they don't want people knowing that the government is doing this, but you can look at like, what was it? Was it Vegas, and where were the last two attacks that were like military guys? It was like New Orleans, the guy that drove into the thing and had the ISIS flag on the back of his truck, right? And killed a bunch of people. And then it was like, was it Las Vegas? Someone,
Yeah,
did
I
you
think
recall?
so. I
Yeah.
remember hearing something about that. Yeah.
These guys were military. It's total MK. Like these guys, it's really part of the deal going on, and there's a lot of things you can look into to research and get more information on that.
Yeah. Just look up trauma-based mind control, and then you find everything if you look up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. I'm always open to having you on the show again. I think we should do another episode on the monarch stuff, because we are going for like an hour and a half right now. So I think we should do a part 2 if you're open to it.
Absolutely. And then do you mind that I say kind of the name of my platform and like really quick? So I'm Truth is in the Rabbit Hole on YouTube, Instagram, and then was TikTok, but they keep banning me, and like it's so crazy. I'm like, you guys have the crazy stuff on here. How is it like I get up to a certain amount of followers or subs, whatever, and get banned? But so that's amazing. But on YouTube, Truth is in the Rabbit Hole, and I started out with the iPhone 4, which we'll talk about, which totally has everything to do with MK Ultra. It's that same area of Bonners Ferry, Moscow, Idaho, and then I've started kind of speaking out about my personal fight for justice and all of that. And I really, really appreciate you. I appreciate and value what you're doing, and any information or files I can share with you, I would love to help what you're doing. You have all my respect. Appreciation.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to send you. Have you seen my videos, my 2-part video series on trauma-based mind control and deprogramming from it? I did a 2-part series, so I'll send you.
I'll watch it. Yeah, send that to me. I've watched a lot of your interviews. You had Barb on, who I love. I love her so much. She's so.
Yeah, Barb is a warrior. Barb is a warrior.
Man, she is. I love Barb. Like, yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll get you on for part 2. I'll reach out here soon. Okay.
Okay, I'll be a little easier about catching.
Okay, cool. Well, I have your number, so I'll text you or whatever.
All right, and you call me anytime, okay?
Okay, all right. And anybody that's watched so far in the video, please make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. It really helps the algorithm. Like, comment, and share so we can get these out to more people and they can find out about it. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.